Well, there you go, folks. It's just gone past 7 o'clock in Brisbane, Queensland, Australia, and our co-host is sitting below me this time. I've changed the order of preference,
Huh.
and yeah, normally I'm at the bottom of the totem pole. I'll put her in the middle there. Anyway, yeah, Andrena is unearthed out of the wilderness of Dorset. Chey. Anyway, there's going to be an interesting conversation today, and you're more than welcome to join us. Anyway, thank you. Back to you, Chey and Andrena.
Thank you, Jeffrey. And we'll talk about you being going placed in a different order next time. Hello, everybody, and welcome to those of you that are listening to Dream in the New Dream, and to our regular listeners. Happy equinox for here in the UK, and it's the 22nd of September 2022. It's the number 1 day today, which is new beginnings, so bring it on. So today it is my great pleasure to have Chey O'Connell on the show, and I met Chey must have been maybe a year ago or less. I saw about a drumming circle, and I really wanted to do some drumming, and I headed off to Ringwood and did this drumming for 2 hours and chanting, met Chey, and there was, I think it was about 16 of us ladies all drumming together and chanting. It was absolutely fantastic. I really loved it, and I've been in touch with her since to do drummings in other places. And then one day my sister and I were in Glastonbury, and we bumped into her and her lovely partner Nikki in the high street. So so you've got many skills to your bow, if you like, so many talents. So I think I'm going to let you share from the start of your journey, because I know you have a beautiful Irish accent and you've lived a very varied life, and your main focus is woodland skills and bushcraft and helping children and nature. It's just some of the things. So without further ado, welcome, and thank you so much for agreeing to come on the show. And would you like to share your journey of life and how it started?
I will indeed, and thank you so much for inviting me on as a guest, and to everybody, happy equinox on this side of the world. And I believe in Australia too, it will be an equinox there, wouldn't it? But a reverse to us. Anyway, so as I say, thank you so much for inviting me, and without further ado, I'll crack on. So my background. As you can hear and see, I'm of Maltese Irish heritage, and I wasn't born in Ireland. I was born here in Weymouth, and my father was in the military, and so we moved around an awful lot. I think the mainstay of my life was my grandparents, who were Maltese Irish. And I had an awful lot to do with them, and I spent all my available time that I ever could. And I think because we moved around so much, I needed to almost like identify with feel belonging to something, and embracing both my Maltese Irish heritage and hearing their accents and stuff like that. And when I get excited, I do the Maltese bit and throw my arms around, and stuff like, so it stuck. It stuck. And I've been moving around all over the world, really. So I went with my family. I spent 2 years in Hong Kong with them, and that was quite an experience. But I was only like 7 or something back at the time there, and so 2 years there, and actually had a jubilee out there and stuff. When I was out there, I got up to all sorts of stuff. I was in the brownies.
Yeah, we're we all.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, I know, sort of like the brownies. Well, sort of like give me the Cubs any day and the Scouts and whatever. But yeah, I was a brownie and had to learn how to iron and do all that kind of caper. But it was good fun. It was good fun while I was there. Had a wonderful life, And sort of like I left the brownies because, and this is sort of like set the tone. There you go. Yeah, set the tone of a lot of my life. Because I was in the brownies, and as I moved up the ranks, because there are actually ranks to be moved up, they wanted me to be the leader of the pack. And as I say, this here set the tone for a lot of my life, because as soon as they wanted me to be the leader, it was like, do you know what? I can't actually handle the responsibility. And so I left, and that there was the stress of being in that position. So so that, as I say, set the tone of my life. And from there, I didn't want to handle the responsibility. And sort of like when we come back to England, life was okay, you know. I moved back to Weymouth when I was 12 years old. And there's a lot of things which had gone down, a lot of experience, good and very bad. And this sort of like, again, it's your formative years, and it makes you into the person I am today. But as I say, a lot of the experiences were really not great, and I'm not going to go into them. But to be fair, I wouldn't change a damn second of everything I've experienced, because it's allowed me to really identify with a lot of people who are going through similar situations. So I find for me, I cannot grow as a person without having challenges, whether they are, mostly when they're bad and stuff like that. So those challenges I learn from, and I've been taking lessons from those challenges and turning them into a positive, in helping me to heal myself, and and as a byproduct, I'm able to heal others, I hope, or at least sort of like try to not, I don't want to guide anybody. We're all on our own individual journeys and stuff, and but sometimes just to know that you're not alone, and that there's somebody who's had a shared experience, and they've seen you come out the other side of it. And of course, when I was younger, I didn't really run with the crowd. I still don't. And by what I mean by that is that I don't run with the majority's thinking. I never have been able to. When I went to college and I was doing my pre-nursing course, I was, sort of like, my goal was to join the army and do nursing in there. And the thing is that I decided I cannot take orders. So that was going to be a really bad idea for me. So I started out in a nursing career when I left college. But at the same time, there you go, yeah, that there is me, my little aspirations, yeah. So
that takes me back.
yeah. So yeah. Thankfully, I never looked like that when I was in my uniform. If I had joined the military, I would have looked like that. But yeah, so I sort of like, I had an undertone of leading a life of self-destruction as well. And my behaviors, my way of thinking was becoming exceptionally self-destructive. I was, sort of like, I was doing things which impacted me on a physical, mental, and spiritual level in a really, really negative way. And I got myself into all sorts of trouble. I was into heavy metal as well, because sort of like I needed those really, really heavy vibes, and it's very strange, really, sort of like thinking back to it, because all the time I was on a self-destruct course in one way, but on another level is that I realized my own spirituality as well. And so they were running sort of like parallel to each other. But when I was about 19, I think it was, I actually ended up in a drug and alcohol rehab. I hit a major rock bottom, and sort of like I was doing too much alcohol, too much drugs, and that was probably the first time that I had to actually look inside of me, and to realize sort of like the external world can't fix me. I have to fix
Yeah.
myself,
Yeah.
and so to start looking inside, because prior to that, it's almost like I was kind of watching people, really, really watching people, and my parents would be down the pub, and I would always want to come along with them and just to sit and watch the human condition unfold, and try to suss out how people interacted, why people interacted, what made them think that way, what made them behave that way. And it was probably the biggest learning curve, I've ever had, because taking that time out, I'd go into town, I'd just like sit in the middle of town on one of the benches and just watch people, watch all their interactions, watch how they moved, watch their body language, watch everything about them. And of course, it's learning my way to communicate and move through the world, but fundamentally, it was learning about me and what I had. So as I say, I went through the drugs rehab, and I was having counselling and stuff like that, and I met some amazing people, really, really amazing people. Some of them who I'm still friends with today, which I'm, very, very grateful for. It's like I lived in Bournemouth at the time, and it was a good few years. I had a long-term relationship while I was there, and eventually sort of like that ended after 14 years, and that there is primarily due to my mental health. Now, where my mental health comes into it, and I do not believe I had a drug and alcohol problem. I believe it was symptomatic to cover the mental health I was experiencing. It was like paranoia. It was awful. And anyway, so when I was 24, still in Bournemouth, I was finally diagnosed with schizoaffective disorder. And for a long time, I really didn't want to talk about that at all. It was something I found shameful. It was something that the rest of the world didn't understand either. And it was the whole stigma around mental health. You tell somebody you have a mental health problem, and they expect you to come banging on their door at 4 o'clock in the morning with an axe in your hand. Do you know what I mean? And that there is the general consensus, because of what is often portrayed negatively in the mainstream media. But mental health, it affects every single one of us at some part of our life. We're human beings. We have emotions. We have mental health, and it is nothing to be shameful about. So now, as time has gone on, at the age of 52, as I am now, I've had to find a peace within myself, and how to deal with schizoaffective disorder. I don't know if anybody's ever heard of it, but basically, it's kind of you've got schizophrenia on one side, you've got bipolar on the other, and this is sort of like a melding of the two. So yeah, if I'm gonna have something, let's just like have it all, eh?
Yeah.
And so I spent many years in and out of the mental health services on both sides of the fence, because then I went into mental health nursing, and I started off in a drug rehabilitation. No, I didn't. I started off in a drugs needle exchange when all of the HIV and AIDS was all that big pandemic thing was going on. So I was in a needle exchange there, which is harm minimization, to try to minimize the spread of HIV among drug users and hepatitis. So that was my first sort of like real major role within the mental health system, and then sort of like I spent 25 years within the mental health service. During this time, of course, I was still very, very much symptomatic of my own mental health problems. Again, I think sometimes, like for me, and this is a very big generalization, which I'm going to say now, and is that quite often those who work within mental health, it's quite often trying to find something in themselves. It's in viewing other people and trying to assist other people become well again, is in some ways trying to get to know yourself and how you tick. And so there was those good and bad points all over the place. I was in and out of hospital. I was sectioned on many occasions. I was held down by teams of nurses, and injected and put out for days. And it was horrible. It's horrible. And that was while I was working in Bournemouth. That was at St Anne's Hospital at the time, because of funding pots and all that sort of stuff, as we're all so familiar with. I was able to go out of the hospital, and then they cut the funding. And then when I did become unwell, I had to be nursed by my colleagues, and that was probably the most awful thing, sort of like to actually sort of like regain that sense of authority when I was back in my uniform, because I was there with fellow patients. I was a patient, and then I had to, once I become well again, I had to get my nurse's uniform back again, and then work with those long-term patients again. It was really, really difficult, and and that there is a big problem within the NHS system, and dealing with mental health. And because a lot of the staff, they do have their own mental health issues, and it's really not looked upon very well. So after 25 years of working within the mental health services, I'd had enough. The red tape had got ridiculous, and when I say red tape, it was things had got so ridiculous that it was all about documentation. It was all about documentation and covering their butts legally, sort of like. And I was removed pretty much, or that's how I felt, from being able to do the job which I wanted to do, which was to assist people in finding their own mental health equilibrium again. There's, and it was just like, I can't do this anymore. I cannot do it. So I had to leave. Yeah. And so, as I say, I did me drugs rehab time. Again, it's always a progression of learning about who I am, and it's like every little thing that's ever happened to me, if you're able to, like in my case, I have always reflected, I've always challenged my beliefs, and my partner goes mental at me because I'm they say that they can't really pin me down. I'm a Gemini. I'm an air sign. I'm mercurial, and I'm very true to that. And they can't pin me down because I may have a rigid belief one day, and then I have an open mind, which is not fixed, which is not cemented. And if I have an argument which makes more logic in my head, I will quite easily change my whole approach. And that there's been the way through all of my life. And I think for me, I needed to do that. I need to do that. I think that's a really healthy way, is not to be fixed in your thinking. And, so I've, that's kind of like a lot of my self-enlightenment. And again, sort of like when I talk about self-enlightenment, there is the spirituality element of that too.
Yeah.
When I was in Bournemouth as well, I spent 10 years in a coven. Obviously, sort of like coming from a Maltese-Irish family, we were Catholics, and I was very, very much into the Catholic religion up until about the age of 14, where it was after being being at mass and we'd go at the back of the church and we'd have a coffee morning. And while in mass we'd hear, sort of like the word of God, and sort of like being, how you ought to work with other people, and the love of God and all that sort of stuff. And then sort of like in the back of the church, the priest, he would be smelling of whiskey. And he's a Scottish priest, and he'd be smelling of whiskey. And the congregation who remained, having their cups of coffee, would then be backbiting and being not very nice about, oh, Mrs. So-and-so is doing this here. And there is so much natter and chit-chat and negativity. And I thought, where is your love? Where is your love for your fellow being here? And that was probably one of the most, on my spiritual path, one of the most poignant moments in my life, because the veil started dropping from my face. And from there, I moved away from the Catholic Church big time, and everything that encompassed. And I then researched every single religion and spiritual pathway there was. And now, at one time, I was very focused on being a pagan. And as I say, I was in a coven for 10 years. And that was really, really good, because it helped to disengage me in some way from the programming of what every individual has, whether it's from the school education system, whether it's from ancestral parenting, historical parenting and stuff like that. It made me realize that, when they say, to think out of the box, it made me realize that there is no box in the first place. We are limitless in our capacities, and so from a spiritual perspective, it basically freed me up. It freed me up to explore, to ask questions, which I do believe every single one of us should always do, to ask questions, to do individual independent research. And so, whereas the coven, it really, really helped me. And, it keyed into things on symbolism and, on a very, very spiritual level. And now for me, I do not need anymore. I don't need the regalia, as it were. I don't need the altars. I don't need the athames. I don't need the robes. I don't need any of that anymore, because I feel now is that I am able to tap into those energies.
Yeah.
Sort of like when you talk about the world of magic, which sort of like a lot of people believe witchcraft to be, it's not about great big waving of wands and all Harry Potter stuff. It's not magic. Magic for me is the intent. It's the thought. It's the projection of your energies in order to make changes. Because in Wicca, we're taught there is the web of weird, and that there is basically like a huge spider web which connects every living being. And when you project your energy onto that web of weird, your intent, then it twangs those little web strands, and it sends out to the cosmos what you need to send out. Now, again, sort of like when you say about being a witch, people go, "Oh my God, are you a white witch or a black witch?" And I say, "I'm neither." And I say, I can actually practice white witchcraft. I can practice black witchcraft, but it's whatever is in the whole depth of the heart of the practitioner to cast whatever spell and your intention to make those changes. That's what magic is. And so, basically, I don't adhere to spells and bells and all that sort of stuff any longer. When I see an opportunity now it's placed there for a reason. It's been placed in my pathway for a reason. And it is up for me to decide whether that sits comfortably with me. That is when, for me, when I'm tuning in and connected to that web of weird, and I'm bringing in those energies and I'm projecting those energies and allowing the cosmos to answer my call. And so yeah, so it's I practice a spirituality which now is I hope, which is one mostly situated around my heart chakra, and I don't get it right all the time. You know, I really don't. Sometimes I can be, you know, the worst person on the planet, and sometimes I can be the best. But you know, I'm still learning. You know, in my journey, and yeah. So that's my spirituality. And as I say, sort of like, if you were to ask me what religion are you, I'd say pagan, but that's a very umbrella term. It's a very umbrella term because, as I say, where I've researched so many spiritual pathways, you know, Buddhism, Judaism, so many, Hinduism, so many pathways, and it's like I've taken all of those religions are absolutely fantastic, but they are and this is my view. This is nobody, you know, this is no slight upon anybody, and I respect everybody for whatever religion they choose to follow or have in their heart. And I find that the books, say for example the Bible, is a guidebook, but the true message of that guidebook has been sullied by the needs and deeds of man. And so the true word, the true love is not there any longer. So from all of these books, from all of this research, I've cherry picked, and I've taken so many of the things that I feel are good parts of each religion, and you know, enmeshed them into my very being. And you know, as I say, I don't get it right. I really, really don't get it right. And sometimes I'm the most unspiritual creature there is in the world when I'm completely sat here on the, you know, on the earth plane, and you know, and I've got Amazon knocking on my door, which I know I shouldn't be buying from Amazon. I know this. Please don't take me for it.
But
you know, sort of like, and again, my partner says, I know so many of the Amazon delivery drivers by name. Or it's like, and it's like, you know, I can sniff out an Amazon van as it passes. It's like, oh, there's Amazon. Yeah, but yeah. So I do apologise. I know I'm buying into old evil Amazon, but hey-ho. Again, it's you know, that there's another thing. Harping back to my my mental health. Sometimes it's almost like, you know, it's instant gratification. You know, it's Christmas every day when you have something arriving in the post, and although I need a lot of stuff, there's a lot of stuff I really don't need, and so yeah, so it's a bit of a thing, sort of like all my life, and then my spirituality, my destructive path, and all that sort of stuff, and you know, just to sort of like recap. And anyway, so moving on. I think you've heard enough about that side of things. So moving on.
No, it's something that you're sharing, because obviously we're all on a journey. We're all in different stages, and you know, at the end of the day, we are all connected. We are all one, and it's all about all being one heart. So, you know, you're sharing your experiences. Somebody listening and think, oh gosh, you know, they feel they're being heard because there's somebody else understands what's going on. So no, 100%. Brilliant. No, keep going, because I know if we jump ahead,
there's more to tell you.
If we jump ahead now, you've just done an Ironman. Where are we now? You did it at the weekend, didn't you, on Sunday?
I did, yes.
And yeah, so do you want to share a bit about that? Because I just thought that was amazing.
Okay, right. Okay, great. Okay, so yeah, so there is the Ironman competition is held all over the world, many events, and this is a triathlon, and so this is held in Weymouth, and I was lucky enough that a good friend of mine, he told me about the swim safety team, so I enrolled on there, and then I was privileged enough to be part of all of this, and it was absolutely amazing day. And so it was fully sold out, and there's 2,300 competitors, and the swim was 1.2 miles, and around Weymouth in a sort of like great big triangle shape kind of thing. And so we were on the kayak team, and we were keeping people safe and all that sort of stuff. And whenever I heard a bit of a cough, I was near the finish point, and so I knew that people were going to be tired then, so I was bringing people in, bringing them home, not physically, but sort of like making sure they were safe. And what really struck me, well, apart from the fact that the water was alive. It was like, when you see the documentaries and you see the fish jumping up onto the breaking the water. It was just like that, but they were human fish. It was like amazing. All these swimmers just passing me in droves. It was amazing. And yeah, so the first was a guy, it was a fella who made it to shore. Yeah, he got a really big round of applause. And then, as the swim went on and stuff like that, and you had must have been the last 50 people or so who were coming in, and you could see they, sort of like swimming as a triathlon part of it. It's not everybody's forte. It's really not.
Yeah.
And you could see they were tiring. You could see they were, where they'd been doing front crawl, they were then doing breaststroke. And there's one man who's like almost like painfully, he's like, just like swimming like that, and I really kept a close eye on him. I thought, God, they were allowed to, if they needed to, just hang on to the kayak, just momentarily, have a little bit of a breather, and then crack on. But what really warmed my heart is that sort of like at the finish line, where, as I say, everybody applauded the first contestant or the first competitor who got onto the beach first, and then he went off and he was doing his cycling then. But the very last, those two last people, and all of the swim kayak team, as we were coming into shore, they were shepherding the two last people in. There was one of the team who was basically absolutely brilliant. He was a guy in his kayak, and he was really come on to the lady who was last, and he's really inspiring and spurring her on. He was there every stroke that she took, because she was so tired, and when she finally made it to shore, she gained the biggest applause. And choked up just remembering it. It's like, that's human endurance, that's human tenacity, that's the strength of a person, it displayed in a physical way, and it was just like magical. It was absolutely magical. So we all gave her a massive, great big round of applause, and she was so disorientated by the swim and everything like that she had to be helped out of the water by she's a bit staggery and stuff like that, but I hope she went on to succeed, because it's hell of a thing. It really is hell of a thing doing the Ironman challenge. So it was great. It was really great, and it felt great to be part of the team, and it felt great not having to be organizing it either. So that was good. Yeah. So that was my weekend.
Oh, thank you for sharing. Because I think that's important, and especially so many people come together. And like you say, it's not about the first as well. It's about all of them that have taken part. They put their heart and soul in it, haven't they?
Absolutely.
So I don't know if you want to carry on from where you were. I know I butted in, but I know I I would love you to talk about the woodland and the skills and how you're bringing the children together, and all the different things that you do and share. And I know I saw on one of your posts a little while ago something to do with like washing, because I know people now are more aware of all the charges that are gone out the roof, and they're cutting down on electricity, water, and all sorts of things. So I know you shared things about washing, different things that you could do that's going to help save and cut down on different things. So take it away, girl.
Right. Okay. I should come on. I hear you. I should come on to that there in a little while, but just to pick up and tell you how I got to where we're at now with food and skills. So I left mental health nursing, didn't know what else to do. So I enrolled in a college at Kingston Moorwood College. And there I did a conservation, ecology and wildlife management course, 2 years. So it's a diploma. And so I qualified in that there at a distinction grade. And, you know, to often the horror of my tutors, they said to me, you're doing this at university level. It's like, it's just a college course. So I had to really rein that in a little bit because I loved it. I absolutely loved it. Now, I've always been an outside kind of girl, always been loving hands-on stuff, hands-on. So basically, after I qualified and with my passion for being outdoors, I didn't know it was called bushcraft. You know, that there's really a new terminology. It was just like being outdoors. I was a tomboy, and just like getting out there in my church, not a man-made church, because I'm just going to say this here. I just feel that while a place of worship is a place of worship, and it's a focus upon that worship, when we walk around a church, I do not feel we're marveling in God's work. We're worshipping man's. And so when I go out into the woods and to bring all of this here together, when I go out into the woods now, I know that man cannot create that tree. They can plant it, but man can't create it and make it grow. That is the true divinity as far as I see it. So whereas I need to heal the mental health aspect of myself, the greatest healer, the greatest, and the spiritual side of myself, the greatest church is all about nature, and understanding the whole ecological system and of how a woodland may work. I love woodlands. I learned about many aspects and many habitats. Whether it be tundras, whether it be marine aspects in my course, but it's the woodlands which absolutely resonate with me. They are my cathedral. They are my everything. It benefits me in so many ways. So, as I say, after I qualified, I thought, what the hell do I do? I'm 40, I was at the time 48 after I qualified. And I thought, I'm too old to be throwing trees around to be a forest ranger. So what on earth do I do? As I sat there whittling a piece of wood, and it struck me, and I realized that the benefits, it was like a little eureka moment, the benefits that I find so healing. I could mix my mental health career and everything that I gained, the knowledge from that. I could mix the spirituality aspect of it if I needed to. I could mix my own mental health in there as well, and all of these things, as well as bushcraft. So I realised that I needed. So I started looking at the green prescription, and the social prescribing and stuff like that. And I was absolutely fortunate enough, very, very lucky to be contacted by my now landowner, and so he kindly invited me and to have a look around his woodland, his private 30-acre woodland, which he owns, and they are beautiful people. My landowner and his wife are. and they are completely very, very spiritual people, and absolutely down to earth, and so there's where I said, yes, please, I would like to. I just wanted to camp out, really, just wanted to camp out and then have mates camping out with me, and then it grew into Wessex Wilderness Skills. So Wessex Wilderness Skills has been going on, and it's a community interest company, which basically means that there you go, it's my logo. It's a community interest company, which means that it's a not-for-profit company. So everything, once insurances, once wages are paid, accountants, the lot, all of those things are done and paid. Everything gets ploughed back into the company again, and we started up, as I say, in 2019, and then had to stop. Funny enough, we all know what happened. We all know what happened for 2 years, so we had to stop for a while. And then in those intermittent times in between, we were running reset days, and they were for people who were frontline workers, and it's basically our way to say thank you for being there. Thank you for through this time where nobody knew what was going on, and they were there and putting themselves on the line because nobody knew what was going on. So we took them out into the woods. And there's people from the Red Cross. I had people from drug teams, people from social services, all sorts of people, also ambulance paramedics, and we took them out into the woods. And one of the most brilliant things was there was one lady who was, there you go, that's our place. There's one lady who was with her, she was a Red Cross person, I think, and she was talking to her friend who basically dragged her out into the woods, and her, I overheard them. That's not the words. There you go. I overheard them speaking, and one lady said, "I didn't realise how much I needed this." And that to me was the most magical sentence ever. See, I do not feel that the bushcraft I teach is it's just an excuse to get out there. It's what brings people out. It's the woodland. It's that actually creates the healing. And it's the woodland. It's authentic. It's genuine. When we live in our little houses here, we are. Yes, we think it's our luxury, but it is so alien to our very selves. That being outdoors is so much more of an authentic way. And you put your feet in the soil, and sometimes you can walk barefoot. Yeah, you might get ticks on your feet, but they're all sort of like the part and package of being outdoors. And so yeah, it's actually been absolutely amazing. And now we are accredited, well, not accredited, but we are now approved, that's right, by Dorset Council and the Education Department, and a branch of the council which is youth targeting scheme and stuff like that. So not only do we provide courses and stuff like that for children, but we provide them for adults. We run social camps. I run workshops. So yes, we do family days. We do solo days as well, where so one of the major things that actually happened once upon a time was there's a friend of mine, and he was an ex-prison officer who had become traumatized by an experience that he had to face. And he was then suffering from a form of PTSD. He came out to the woods, and subsequently he left the prison service. He came out to the woods. Now, because he was a friend of mine, I hugged him. I could physically feel his body trembling. By the end of the day, just he and I spent time, and I was listening to what he had to say, and we were doing things. He was lighting a fire. I could see his whole body language was absolutely. It was starting to relax. When he left me that day, I hugged him again. There was not a single shake in his body, and
Brilliant.
absolutely, and that's the power of just being there, listening to someone's story, having it validated, having it heard, and just allowing it to get out of your head, all those things which are running around your head, and allowing nature to suck up those negativity, those negative things that we might be experiencing. And I just really, really, truly feel that the greatest gift another human being can offer another human being is your time, is your focus, and is your listening ear to have another person hear your story. And so that there is basically what we're about. And we've gone from strength to strength. So yeah, we've had funding, and I'm jumping around all over the place here. We've had funding from the Dorset Council to provide all summer long children's activities. So it's called the Holiday Activity Food Project or Program, something like that, provision even. And so basically it's low-income families can, they get given a passcode when they have free school meals. And so that passcode entitles them to come out to the woods. And there's all sorts of activities. It's not just us. There's all sorts of activities, whether it's horse riding, sailing, whatever. And they could come out to the woods. But there were so many people who kept on returning to us, the children, because they loved it. They loved it. And seeing that social interaction between those children, seeing them running around, seeing them breathing fresh air, seeing them being creative, using their imagination to, construct their little homes. And just playing and laughing and just having fun. That was what it was all about for me. And so that's the magic which we were thankfully able. I've been so fortunate to provide. And so as I say, we've got some girl guides coming out, the girl guide leaders, and we're going to be I'm going to be teaching them, because and so yeah, we do birthday parties, workshops, and all sorts of stuff. And we're having reindeer making workshops. We've got holly wreath making workshops using the dreaded C word, I'm afraid, Christmas. Yeah, bar humbug. Yeah, the thing my partner says is I'm the Grinch. But anyway, so Yule, I prefer to call it.
Yes.
Yule, yes, indeed. So we've got those workshops coming up, and we've just been very, very fortunate as well. Is that we've got some more funding for over the winter holidays.
Brilliant.
Yeah, so it's really, really good. It's all taken off. It's all absolutely fantastic. All really exciting, and it's just going from strength to strength. It's taken obviously a big knock with those 2 years everybody had out of the loop, but it started to build up. And say, just to recap, those benefits that I feel about the woodland, about the real divinity of the woods, and how it moves me, how it heals me, how it balances me. And when I am a bit off kilter with mental health, I say to my partner, I know what I need to do. I need to get out. I need to get to that woodland. And I literally hug a tree. And if I haven't been there for a while, I have such a connection with that woodland, is that I start dreaming about it, and that I know I have to get back there very, very quickly. And as soon as I'm back there, I just burst out crying, and because it's just a healing place. And when you see an old friend you haven't seen for a long time, then you do get emotional. So basically, that's my story. Life as it is at the moment is very exciting. It's all good. I'm up to all sorts. I do have hobbies. I do actually have hobbies. I have a wonderful partner. I have a little dog. And again, I do stuff for a walking group. I set up a walking group called Dorset Roaming Ramblers. And what we do is we cater for all sorts of people. Again, it's for mental and physical well-being. And just get people out there, connecting with each other, getting out, enjoying what beautiful countryside we have here in Dorset. It's just it's amazing. All sorts of habitats, all sorts of environments, and because of my passion for bushcraft, I can't actually zip it and not say, oh, there's wild edible right there, you can eat that, or you can't eat that. I drive my partner mad, because whenever we go out for a walk, it's like my partner says to me, "Do not eat anything. Do not eat anything," because and it's like I know what I'm looking at, but again, like I drive my partner insane because I'm giving them a foraging walk whenever I'm going out, so just go for a wander. But I do my drum workshops. I play a lot of music and play the ukulele and I've never ever done it. That is playing a ukulele underneath a lamppost. Not ever, not ever. I play the Irish Baron, and it's like lots of instruments really, and the guitar I've taken up. There you go. There's my little white ukulele. Yes, indeed. That's my little lot there, and it's like. They're a really good bunch of people, and they play a lot in nursing homes and entertain all sorts of people. It's really good crack. It's really
How
good.
far is your woodland from where you are?
Well, I'm in Weymouth. The woodland is in Owermoyne, and which is about, for me, a drive of, it depends on if I'm in a rush or not, is about, on a good day, 15 minutes away. If I'm in a rush, it's 10 minutes away. So as I say, it's 30 acres, and our company rents out 10 of those, around about 10 of those acres, kind of thing. And sort of like the landowner is fully aware of when we are on site. And we do try to, if I spot anybody coming into the woodland, because there's a lot of people from the village think that they can walk through there, and so I spot them. I have to sort of like, I'm not anybody's mental health nurse, so I don't know their vulnerabilities. Also, we have children out there, so if I see anybody coming up on site and whatever, I have to turf them out nicely to keep everybody completely safeguarded, and all that kind of stuff. So so that there is basically my story. Basically it.
Yeah, well, that's
where
brilliant.
I am now.
Right. So, what's the youngest children that you've been working with there?
Oh, well, I've been working with children who are like 6 years old, and up to the age of 16, while we've been out in the summer. But obviously, sort of like, I don't really like to take on just 6 years old because their comprehension, their motor skills are not that great. But again, talk about motor skills. Again, we're very cotton wool board as a society. Health and safety gone mad. The whole thing. And so even when children are, they've been placing sticks on the ground and using their cognitive mobility and motor skills to actually balance. And it's those kind of things which are lost, because the schools, oh my God, a child may fall. Oh my God, a child may hit their head. Well, it's like, they're risks. They're appropriate risks. We all need to take risks in life. And if you do fall, you learn from it. You learn from it. If you're creating a fire and you realize the heat, you realize it can be both your friend and your enemy as well. If it's not used wisely, those children, they can feel the heat from that fire, but they're controlling that fire. It becomes a friend. They can feel the warmth from it, but if they go too close, they know it becomes some part of danger. Those are appropriate risk taking. Again, I allow children to use knives, and again, so long as they hear me, and I can be Miss Nice Bushcrafter, and I can be really Miss, stern Bushcrafter too. And and if anybody doesn't listen, then I have to ask them to put the knife down, because it's it's absolute paramount that they keep themselves safe. But they do, and there has never been any mishaps so far. Touch wood. Apart from me when I was demonstrating what not to do with a knife, and I cut my hand. But hey, so that's kind of it.
So what sort of like we touched on, I think you said about saving water, or what? What key tips, excuse me, can you share with people now? Because we're going into autumn and winter and what have you over here. So what tips?
Okay, right. So part of the things that I do when I'm teaching, I do self-reliance, I do survival, I do bushcraft, and I also do we deliver being, you know, aware of situations and a bit of self-defense as well. So we do that too. Now, so with the self-reliance, you know, sort of like within our homes, and you know, if ever we're in a situation where we have to leave our homes, and you know, sort of like a lot of people talk about prepping as a zombie apocalypse. Oh my God, you know, sort of like it's the end of the world. No, it's not. It's not at all. If the water system goes down, if the utilities go down, if you have to you know, get a bag that somebody needs you, and you have a bag prepared, you know, sort of like it could be called a grab bag or bug out bag or something like that. There, have your car, your vehicle ready. As you say, we're coming up to winter and stuff like that, so you need kit in there to safeguard you and the contents of your car, whether it's your dog, your children, or you know, or your elderly grandma, you know. And so you need blankets in there, you need water in there, you need snacks. You don't know if your car's going to be broken, it's going to break down. And so those are things that we need to safeguard against. And you know, sort of like in the ever-changing world that we're living in, you know, when we're in our homes, as we all know, fuel is becoming very expensive and stuff like that. It's sometimes it's making your world smaller. We will give off a natural amount of heat unless, of course, our core temperature falls below a certain temperature, and then we don't do that very well anymore. But even when you light candles, of course, you have to be very, very careful of that it's an open flame if you've got cats running around. But even a candle will emanate a certain amount of heat. Now, to heat your room, if you even just shut the door, make sure there's no gaps in that door for the air to, you know, sometimes on a windy day we have wind howling through this house, you know. But if you shut the door, you block off the airflow in the bottoms, and you know that there are very, very lots of methods that you can use. Obviously, your first line of defense is what you wear. That is your first layer of protection. That is your first shelter. So whatever you're wearing, so make sure you've got thermals in, and make sure you've got woolly socks in. If necessary, you sit there with a scarf on. You know, there are blankets. Get some nice wool blankets, or something which makes you feel nice and snuggly. It keeps you. You know, you can boil up a flask of water. You know, so you've got one hit with that, you know, for that energy use, one hit. So you boil up a flask of water, you have it sat there with you, you can make a cup of tea. That means also that you don't have to keep on moving back and forth and allowing that heat to escape from your home. There's also, when I, you know, sort of talk about candles as well, there is a method where you have four bricks sat next to each other, parallel to each other. In the middle, you have a plate with some of those little tea light candles. You put 4 tea light candles in there. Over the top of that, you have to have the airflow going through, is a terracotta gardening pot. Now, there's all sorts of things that you can do with this here, but the most simplest way is basically to put the terracotta pot over the top of them. That terracotta pot will actually heat up with the candles underneath it. And again, it's a really good heat source. It's a really, really good heat source, you know. You know, we're thinking about water. We've been very restricted of water, you know, from in our skies. There's not a lot of water butts which have actually filled up over the summer. But again, sort of like, you know, sometimes I don't like keeping my kettle full because we are in a hard water area and it limes up the kettle. But I know that one day I left my kettle full up. Now, at the end of the road, there was a water, one of the pipes had burst, and the water had to be switched off here. We were switched off for some good hours. My kettle was already filled. I could make myself brew. You know, I couldn't use a tap. So it's having little things like that, a little store of water, which is vital to all of us in cooking, in self-hygiene, in, you know, our hydration. It's so important. You know, we have to keep hydrated, and it's incredibly important. And you know, so those just like some little tips. You know, I mean, my God, there's so much more. You know,
I know. That's another show.
I know, yeah, so it is, yeah. Yeah, it is. Yeah, so I mean, there are so many more tips, and you know, the YouTube is fantastic for getting ideas of how to shore yourself up within your own home. You know, make sure you've got enough medication that you don't actually need to go outside. You know, not many of us, you know, sometimes we get snowed in here. Sometimes we do. You know, thankfully I've got a great big 4x4 vehicle. I know I can get out of here. But when I tried to get out of here, I couldn't get down my steps because they were iced up, you know? So, so it's like, it's preparing for the worst, and then you always come out the best. You know, and if it never happens, fantastic, that's great, that's absolutely great. But you know, so prepping is, you know, sort of like, is a bit of a, you know, many people perceive it as a redneck sitting on a veranda on his rocking chair with a great big shotgun in his hand. It's not, you know, sort of like, and it's certainly not in a zombie apocalypse. In this world that we're living in, there are not many certainties to be depended upon, and that is the utilities and whatever as well. And so you reclaim your own power, you take back your own power, and you protect you and your loved ones and pets. And that's all it's about, really. That's all it's about, you know. So
Brilliant.
Yeah.
Well, thank you. It's been absolutely amazing. And I do plan to come to one of your woodland days one day. I'd love to come and have a look around and be part of it. So and maybe I'll bring my gong one time and we'll do a gonging on land. So,
absolutely, it's something we could arrange. It is indeed.
Yes.
Yeah, maybe when in the warmer weather.
Yeah.
Yes, indeed. Okay, well, thank you so much for listening to me rambling on for an hour.
No, it's been lovely. It's fascinating. I love listening to people's journeys and all the information they've got to share and the wisdom. So thank you so much for being our guest this week, and happy equinox. And I look forward to seeing you another day.
Indeed. Okay. Thanks, guys. Thanks for listening. Over and out.